What is going on, guys? Matt O'Leary back with another video and some good news from this past week. So according to reports, the New York Jets expect Breece Hall to be back for week 1. Why is that important? Well, before his ACL injury, which ended his season, unfortunately, after 7 games as a rookie, he was a beast. He looked like he was going to be the offensive rookie of the year. Granted, his teammate Garrett Wilson then became offensive rookie of the year, but Breece Hall was downright dominant for the New York Jets in 2021, and getting him back and ready for week 1 would be absolutely insane. So according to Rich Cimini, head coach Robert Saleh told him earlier this week that star running back Breece Hall looks, quote, fantastic, which is, again, really good news. The Jets probably will take it pretty slow with him in training camp. I wouldn't expect to see much action from him in June, July, into August. Don't expect to see him in the preseason, but maybe it takes a couple of weeks for him to get up to speed early on in the year. But kind of what I wanted to do is just talk about, again, his numbers. In 7 games, he had 80 carries, 463 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry, which is just downright beastly things. But I guess kind of go into just some recent examples of ACL tears and guys coming back, and kind of the varying expectations on what you could expect from Breece. Obviously, best case scenario, and then kind of down to worst case scenario, and where I think he'll end up falling. So obviously the best case scenario would be what happened to Adrian Peterson. So AP tore his ACL in 2011. He came back in 2012 and won the MVP. He had over 2,000 rushing yards, 2,097, and 12 touchdowns. He was an absolute beast in 2012. Now, is it fair to say to put those kind of expectations on Breece Hall? No, but that's not the only example of a running back coming back after an ACL and looking like an absolute stud. I mean, look at what Jamal Charles was able to do. That's another stud running back in that same year. In 2011, he tears his ACL as well, comes back in 2012, puts up 1,500 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, and over 5 yards per carry. So while obviously over 2,000 yards would be incredible, you could still have a guy come in and be, again, 1,500 yards from, like, most years, that is your leading rusher. That's just crazy numbers. And then some lesser examples, more recently than 2011, but just some that weren't great. In 2017, Dalvin Cook, as a rookie, tore his ACL. In 2018, he came back and played 11 games, rushed for 615 yards and 2 touchdowns, and averaged 4.6 yards per attempt. Obviously, you're hoping it'd probably be a little bit more than that. And then maybe the worst example recently was Saquon Barkley in 2020, tears his ACL, comes back in 2021, averages 3.7 yards per attempt, woof, and 593 yards. Now, granted, there are some other factors in that. For instance, the 2021 Giants offensive line was downright abysmal, and he bounced back pretty nicely in 2012. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as what Saquon and Dalvin was coming back, but I also don't think it's fair to say, like, oh, he's going to put up Jamal Charles numbers. I was actually asked on Twitter recently over the weekend what I thought of him coming back and what his expectations would be. And I kind of said in my reply that it's hard to project what he'll be because you don't know what he's going to be to start the year. But I had him at 225 carries for just over 1,000 yards, 1,080 yards, 4.8 yards per attempt, and 9 touchdowns. I think they're going to be really, heavy utilizing him in the red zone. And that's not to say that he can't be effective in the passing attack too. I think, add a couple 100 more receiving yards and maybe a couple receiving touchdowns. But I think he could look relatively close to the guy that he was as a rookie. Is it fair to say he's going to average over 5 yards a carry? Maybe not. I think that's pretty lofty expectations coming off an injury, but 4.8, that's still a great season. Over 1,000 yards as a rusher would be fantastic. And 225 carries is a nice number. I don't think they need to workhorse him and get him over 300 because, again, he's coming off an injury. And I would anticipate maybe like the first 4 weeks of the year, they bring him on a little bit slow, which is kind of what happened last year. He didn't really hit his stride until the Miami game, which is what, the 5th game of the year, somewhere around that. Or I guess even against Pittsburgh, we started to see it a little bit more, but October was when he really started to go off. So that's my expectation for him at least. But honestly, one, let me know what your expectation is 4 is? That don't make sense. Let me know what your expectation is for him down in the comments, and just how do you feel about him coming back, and when do you expect him to hit his stride? Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Matt. I'll catch you next time.